What's up, y'all? It's me. I'm your host today. We are on a filming streak where this is the third episode we have filmed within 3 days. So we hope that you're enjoying this machine of content we're putting out for you. We are gearing up for that Swordsmith Village just as much as we hope you are. It's me, Bryan, and since today's episode is super jam-packed with seriousness and no comedy, let's start with a Demon Slayer dad joke, if you will. Why does Canal put fireworks in her milk? She wants her butter to fly. And see, the thing is that they're still laughing, but not because of the joke, because I'm still so confident in delivering it, folks. They've already read this pre the episode here. So with that being said, let's get into it. We open the episode. Tengen's on the ground, missing an arm. Yikes. Inosuke has been stabbed through the heart. Zenitsu is getting caught in the massive attack here, and Tanjiro is falling off the side of a building. Now let's take a comparative stance here and think of another low point in another anime battle, and tell me how this compares to the feelings you have.
We didn't introduce ourselves, so I'm just going to say, hi, I'm Hannah, and I'm Tanjiro falling off a building.
Oop, forgot that part.
It's okay. We're moving along. We're on the 3 episodes. Anyway. Another low point in another anime battle. I mean, my brain has to go to Attack on Titan. I feel like nearly every battle there is a low point in the show. Like,
pain.
All I know is pain. I think it's so hard to compare. Like, people try to compare Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan all the time, but I think it's kind of a silly argument to have because they're so different shows. But I think, we're in this battle and we're at the lowest of lows right now. As far as we know, like, is Tanjiro the only one alive at this point? Like, Zenitsu's kind of given himself up to save Tanjiro. We saw Tengen lay on the ground and we saw Inosuke get stabbed through the heart. The best fight that I can think of is pretty much any Attack on Titan fight in the first season where it's like, oh, we're about to do really good, and oh, we just lost 5 people because they all just got devoured. And I won't even get started on thinking Eren was dead in the first 5 episodes. So it feels like that. It feels like, how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to do it? But one thing I know for sure in Demon Slayer is that Tanjiro is going to figure something out.
Very true. I am going to get started on thinking, spoiler also, if you're 10 years behind in Attack on Titan, stop listening to this right now and go do yourself a favor and watch that real quick. But I am going to get started on us thinking that Eren was dead in the first season, because actually, as I was watching this specific scene, I was immediately reminded, I think, of Attack on Titan, very specifically that exact moment. Because you've got your little blondie over here on the roof, right? Like, you've got Armin and Zenitsu in this scene, right, in the roof. And then you've got your dark-haired unintentional troublemaker on the other end. You've got Eren or Tanjiro, and the situation is reversed a little bit, but it ends up with reaching out on the roof. You've got Zenitsu pushing him off but kind of reaching out, or you've got Armin trying to pull Eren out of the mouth of the Titan, literally, in this exact moment. And we all know, as long as we've seen it, how that ends up going. And to me, I think that felt very intentional. It definitely seemed like a call to that particular design choice. And the illustration itself was definitely very, very reminiscent of that scene in Attack on Titan. So I would definitely say that that's a low point. And if there is any thought behind the similarity, then it could mean that we're not in for anything fun in these next few moments.
All I know is pain.
Oh, you'll soon know pain for sure as well. Great guy. But I like both those answers. Those are actually both really interesting because, things aren't looking too bright, But hey, let's hop in. Nezuko gets her first full-blown monologue. Oni-chan! And then she looks to tell Tanjiro to get back in there and stop feeling sorry for yourself, because you can't decide if other people are happy since we are still fighting. I think it's a really cool moment for Tanjiro since he finally gets to hear from Nezuko fully. What do you think this means for Tanjiro to hear his sister's true feelings for the first time in a really long time?
I think that it means he's tapping into, yet again, the part of his subconscious that he needs the most in this moment. Whether or not she's truly communicating with him, like intentionally, in this kind of semi-unconscious state that he's in from just being battered and bruised so much throughout these last several episodes, not 100% clear, because the version of her we're seeing is kind of like the flashback version again, similar to other times that he's seen other siblings. But like you said, it generally hasn't been Nezuko that we've seen. But I think that he's heard exactly what he's needed to hear every single time that this has happened. And so in this moment, what he needs is Nezuko. And I think that there's something really nice about him maybe not needing that up until this moment, in that she's like always been there with him. But how nice for him also that he can wake up and she is actually really there, as opposed to the others.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a mixture of both. I think it was a very interesting animation and design choice for like halfway through this moment, her hair to go from being like in the bun to flying out of the bun and going back to being long with the like blonde ends that is her demon hair. I thought that was like a really interesting choice to make, because it felt like that was showing that this is kind of a mixture of like a flashback scene, but also possibly, I don't know if like Nezuko is speaking to him in this moment, because this is like his conscious brain or unconscious brain, like kind of dreaming, but maybe it's like the words that he like unconsciously knows he needs to hear, and he knows he needs to hear it from her, and this is like materializing in front of him, where he's getting this like vision of her as a human, but also like being reminded that she's a demon still. I don't know, like I don't know the deeper meaning, but I feel like there is like that kind of deep meaning behind like the hair change midway through the scene. And I think, as always, it's really important for Tanjiro to hear that. I think if Nezuko was able to speak to him in this moment, like for real, she would have said about the same thing. He's always blaming himself. He's just finished apologizing 4 or 5 times to everyone as he falls to the ground, when nothing is his fault. None of this is his fault, right? And she's like, you need to stop blaming yourself. You need to stop, like all of this inner dialogue that you have that blames yourself, because it's not that. And we need to just be happy with what we have sometimes. And I think that's really important, and he needs to hear that. And especially in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, being happy with what you have, not really conducive in the capitalistic environment that we live and currently participate in. However, very nice concept to review in mind. And I think overall, the feelings here are really important for Tanjiro to kind of fuel, because we know that, from what we've gathered so far, it feels like the Hinokami Kagura is a little bit more emotionally charged than maybe the other breathing forms. So I think this is really important, as he's tried to lean on it and maybe didn't have that emotional gas to light the fire here. So really cool ways to kind of look at that part. Now, we'll also love Tanjiro being able to flip that switch and being like, I'm going to do what I can. And boom, upper 6 is immediately in your face. And they are watching you. Like, you got Daki up on the house, like up on the rooftop, no gifts this time. And then he's in your face, Gyutaro. Eventually he does ask the question, right? Is that your younger sister? Why would this intrigue a demon? And then why is it so important that they stop in the middle of such an intense fight to answer this question?
This is the lowest of low we've ever been in the show. And that brief moment of Tanjiro being like, I'm gonna do what I can, and then Gyutaro right there. It's so bone chilling. I don't know if the question that he asked, is this your older or younger sister? I don't know if any demon would ask that. I don't know if like an Akaza would take the time to ask that, because he might not understand. I think this is Gyutaro truly, like in his own very strange and twisted way. He's like identifying with Tanjiro in this moment. And like he wants to play with him because he sees Tanjiro 100% as the absolute like weaker version of himself in this moment. Because Gyutaro's like, I'm protecting my little sister. What the hell are you doing? And he knows that if someone were to like make fun of him and say that he's not doing a good job, that he would not like that. And I think he's just kind of trying to poke the bear, because he thinks in this moment there is absolutely no way that Tanjiro can do anything. He is done. He literally just said, I can't lift my arm or something like that. Like, okay, this is bad. And I think this is like a very specific moment for Gyutaro to just kind of to play. He's literally it's like playing with your food before you eat it is like the vibes that I get.
I agree. That's an interesting way to put it. Don't play with your food, skinny little shank of a boy. Although preferably maybe don't eat either right now, I think is what we would prefer. But
right. Play with your food. Give them time to figure something out.
Yeah, I think he's got like this sick fascination, and we're going to get to this, I think, in some of our discussion too, but clearly there's a parallel between Tanjiro and Nezuko and Gyutaro and Daki. And I think that in this moment, Gyutaro is exploring that. But he is looking down on them in this moment. This is like not a fight that's an issue. He hasn't even really had to super exert himself yet. The closest that, we had seen were some of the kunai knives, but he really hasn't had to like give it his all yet, and like already look at the ruin that surrounds all of them. So I think that he feels that Tanjiro is probably doing a poor job of protecting his sister. And again, it just kind of leans into that sentiment that we've heard from other demons before of like humans are so much more frail, and being a demon is great because we have this infinite ability to regenerate, to protect, in theory, the people that they care about, as long as the people that they care about are also demons. So not really working in Tanjiro's favor at this precise moment from Gyutaro's point of view.
Yeah, and you guys both make really good points there about like playing with your food, but also like, humans don't even get the perspective to, if you will, play with your food, because every moment counts if you're a demon slayer, right? I don't think you really have time to taunt a demon, unless you're Tengen, of course, and then you can, say that you're ready for 10 bowls of udon, and then you can eat buffet, but it's neither here or there.
You see where that got him? Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna eat 10 bowls of udon from the ground.
Sorry.
Oh no. You're good. But Gyutaro does follow the rabbit hole a little bit and test Tanjiro's boundaries on his sister and taunts him a little bit. He requests that he try to cut his head off of his body with his weak sauce. That was actually the direct translation from Crunchyroll. It says, with your weak sauce body. And I was like, I don't know if that's a word, but sure, go for it. Looking at the implications of kind of this entire conversation, he asked the question, would you like to become a demon so that way you can continue to protect your sister? How would you feel if you were in Tanjiro's shoes, knowing that this may be the only way out?
Oh my gosh, if I was in Tanjiro's shoes, I probably would have been dead like a season and a half ago. Like I would have fallen down that mountain in like episode 2, and that would have been the end of me. But like,
I'm glad you said it, because same.
I mean, like if I was in Tanjiro's shoes, I think I would have been very tempted at this point. And I don't know. It's hard to say what I would do in that exact moment if like my sister's life was on the line and I felt like there was only one way out. What I would do is different than what I think Tanjiro is going to do here. Nezuko is strong, and I do not think that Tanjiro would ever lean into this offer. No matter how tempted he might be, it would have to be something done by force, because his whole drive and his entire motivation is to turn Nezuko back into a human, even though her body is less susceptible to, any harm that could befall her. Technically, in the state that she's in right now, it's in his mind still not worth it. And so the entire mission is to turn her back. He would never take anybody up on an offer like that.
I think there's one situation where he would sit there and say, okay, I'll do it. And that would be if him turning into a demon would turn Nezuko into a human. That's because, like you said, Emily, like that is his whole reason for living, really. Like his reason for everything that he does. And he says it inside his head continually throughout this entire story is like, I will do it. I will turn Nezuko back into a human. So, again, like not to repeat what I said at the last question, like we're still at the lowest of low. Like, and now at this point, like Gyutaro was asking him this, like Tanjiro ran away, you know, like he ran into a building, he got kicked around. He's literally like stumbling to the ground and throwing like rocks at Gyutaro while he just laughs at him and walks up to him and kicks him in the stomach. Like he is already beat up. Now he's like taking on more, right? I think a lot of people in this situation, if they were still alive after all these injuries, would be like, yes, like, please, I don't want to die. Just turn me into a demon and I can figure it out, you know? But we know that that's not the case for Tanjiro, as well as most of our demon slayers. You know, they've been fighting with their lives on the line for however long. They've seen so much death at the hands of demons that they like can make that conscious decision to be like, I will not do this. And of course, Tanjiro's like at the top of the list of not wanting to do it, you know? So I can see why, like, I would see why he'd be like, okay, let's do it. Maybe I can get stronger that way and stay good like my sister. But you know, he's not. He's going to say no. And does he even say no? I feel like he just kind of doesn't say anything, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah.
I think
he ignores him. He's like, no.
I think he's like gasping for breath still.
Yeah, that's true. He's just, no, yeah, it goes to him being like, what do I do? What do I do? Or something.
That's my impression. I'm sorry.
It was a good impression.
Good job. Better than what I could do.
And then this is where Emily auditions for season 4 of Demon Slayer.
I'm not even going to try to go up against Natsuki. Maybe I can get hired for like the Portuguese dub or something. I don't know.
Wait. This would be great. He needs some competition. Come on, let's do some breathing exercises to try and knock him out of it. No, I'm absolutely kidding.
I will audition to play the voice of Natsuki in the commentary of the show. How about that?
And it was at this moment where I, Natsuki Hanae, almost died recording Tanjiro's lines.
And then I went to In-N-Out Burger.
And that's where he almost died from food poisoning. No, I was okay.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm
really?
kidding. I'm saying like, what would that be like? Like super tangent, but like I think about the food that they eat in Japan, and then you come to America and you eat In-N-Out Burger. Like, I know they have fried food in Japan, so I might be way off here. But I was like, what if they get sick from all that like deep fried?
I feel like In-N-Out is like the least processed version that they could get. Like it's, you know,
fair.
You know, like at least In-N-Out, you see them like slicing the potatoes and stuff back there.
That's true. There's so much oil. I hope he didn't get like sick after that. Okay. Anyway.
Hey, valid concerns. We gotta be. I don't know. We got to be concerned for our voice actors, right? We
They're very
stand.
important.
They get money because of our friend, or I don't know if it's friendship, but sure, we'll go with it. And of course, right, coming back around to Tanjiro, I believe Tanjiro was like, I will never. And that's when he went for what was deemed a lame headbutt, but it clearly wasn't, right? What are your thoughts on Tanjiro's moves in playing a little bit of a mastermind game to buy himself one more shot at Gyutaro here?
Can I actually give y'all like a semi-short Japanese lesson on this?
Sure.
Hell yeah.
Okay. You guys might have seen this because I already mentioned it to y'all, but I want to tell the listeners because I find this very interesting. And you kind of brought it up like with him saying like never, and then he headbutts him. But you might notice when you're watching anime that characters say different things when they're like saying like I am or I. There's like 3 ways that you hear most of the time it's gonna be watashi wa. That's the most common one you hear. But there's also boku wa and ore wa. And so breaking them down, I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible without getting it wrong. Watashi wa is very formal or feminine. So when you're speaking in like a formal situation, like to someone brand new or someone you respect, everyone uses watashi wa. It is considered like gender neutral. But then if you're in like a more like just a conversation like with your friends, it's more feminine. So if like a guy uses it with a friend, it's kind of weird. Boku is a male. It's more of the masculine way to like say I to friends. Orewa is very, very casual. Like you really only say it to like your super close friends and family. Again, it's more like male. Girls just use watashi wa pretty much in any situation. The other side to orewa is actually kind of like to state that you're of higher ranking than the other person, or like it's kind of considered disrespectful in a non-super casual environment. So if you're like talking to a coworker, if you say orewa, they're kind of thinking that you're saying like that you're like of higher like standing than them at the job. So and Tanjiro says orewa a lot, but he usually uses it with his friends or when he's just talking to himself. In this situation, saying this to Gyutaro, who is not his close friend and not his family member, you can pretty much read it as him saying, like, I am better than this guy. I am better than you. I am better than you. Let me headbutt you and show you what I'm made of. So there's your little Japanese lesson of the day. If I got any information on that wrong and you are you are Japanese, feel free to let me know and I will fix what I said. But that's just what I learned via like my schooling that I'm going through right now. So I found that really interesting. It's nice to see that Tanjiro was being strategic this whole time and that he hadn't just given up and tried to run away, because I definitely thought at first that he was, which was real of him. Honestly, I would do it. But it's nice to know that he's the same old Tanjiro that never gives up and was trying to figure out a plan in that moment, and then was being a total savage and pretty much telling Gyutaro that he was better than him. So I love him.
I love Hannah's Japanese lesson, so I don't know if I'm going to have a whole lot more to add. I think it's so cool to pull so much out of just the language that they use, even briefly. But he used his head. Once again, it's the oldest trick in the book for him, but it works. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So they never expected either. No matter how many times we've seen Tanjiro use this, it does seem to generally work, even though in this case, it did take a two-step thought process for Tanjiro, because we know that he is multitasking in this moment to get the upper hand on Gyutaro. So well done. Well done, my boy.
Right. I think it's really interesting when you always bring the little bits of the language, of course, right, Hannah? So that was really awesome. But also, I mean, hey, for Tanjiro to be able to think 2 steps ahead instead of 1 is a feat in itself. Taylor Swift would be proud. He is a mastermind. Dominoes cascade in the line. It's a song. It's an entire thing. We won't go down that rabbit hole. However, with a turn of events, Tanjiro can manage just enough strength to go after Gyutaro's neck after putting that lovely hidden kunai into him. Those little sachets of what, I don't know what they were, tea or whatever, that were hiding the scent of the kunai. So that was pretty lit. And he goes after Gyutaro's neck. But again, the hesitation here comes from Oni-chan. And it's not Nezuko this time. It's Daki, actually. And this actually strikes Tanjiro. And how do you feel about the dynamic between our current antagonists and our standing duo of Nezuko and Tanjiro? And how does this scene kind of build that context?
Well, I mean, we've seen the parallels already in several of the previous episodes, but this is one of the first times I think that Tanjiro kind of calls it out specifically. And it's, like that stark realization of like, oh, things could have been different. This could have happened to us very easily, because again, the whole point of this show is not necessarily good versus evil, but it's about choices. And in this case, I would maybe argue like a little bit of destiny too, at least for our antagonists, because there are some things that you're born into, and we'll get to that in the next episode a little bit more, but they just weren't necessarily given the same chances that other people might be given. Granted, to a degree, that's true for Tanjiro and Nezuko as well, although the very, very base elements of what they were born into, I do think are strikingly different. We'll get to that in the next episode, but this really easily could have been the two of them. You know, if Tanjiro had been there at the mountain home the same night that everything happened to the rest of his family, who knows where we might be now. And call that fate, call that choice. It doesn't really matter, I guess, at this point necessarily for more than just discussion, because this is where we currently are, and clearly their circumstances are very different, but they are foils of each other, certainly. And it makes it sad because it's relatable. And I think that it gives Tanjiro a bit of pause as he's engaging in this battle, because how would Nezuko feel if it was his neck that was about to be hit by the sword?
I could go on for days about the parallels between these four siblings, but I don't have that much time. I don't know what that accent was.
I was like, yeah, did you just go to like Castlevania or what?
I did go to the Renaissance Festival, so
there it is.
I'm thinking of talking in a British accent for the rest of the time, even though anyway. I need to focus. My brain is I'm feeling the ADHD today. First, the moment where like we hear like Nezuko saying Oni-chan, Oni-chan, and then it switches to Daki, and then Tanjiro like gasps and sees himself in Gyutaro was like really powerful. I think that's one of the first times he really can truly, like before he beheads the demon, can see just like how I'm trying to figure out a way to word it, because like his empathy is playing into this, right? Like he's already been this empathetic person and can kind of sense via his smell or his heart that these demons that he's been killing are kind of just like messed up creatures that found the wrong path. And in this moment, like this is him realizing that before he even kills the demon, right? He's trying to bring down his sword and he's like, this could be me. This could have been me. And that's a great what if. Like, what if Tanjiro was there? Like, would he have died? Would he have turned into a demon? We don't really know. That could be a good conversation for an episode once we're done recapping. And I think we'll probably speak a little more on their parallels in the next episode, but it's just building it up. And, you know, seeing Tanjiro and Nezuko holding hands walking one way, and then Gyutaro and Daki holding hands walking the other. You know, they're just doing a very good job at kind of painting that, like, this could have very easily happened to Tanjiro and Nezuko, and we'd be experiencing a very different story. And I think that's important to know, is it's showing us our Daki and Gyutaro villains. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I think those are both really interesting points to bring up, right? Because, you know, obviously, now that it's years after the events of episode 1, right, we really get to look back and kind of make those questions now, because we're mid-stage of what it feels like for the story overall. So being able to kind of question, like, where their humanity stems from through their field of experience versus, you know, now the, I guess, hundreds, because we can kind of assume that they're demons, they're old AF, let's be real. So you can kind of assume that they also have that very different humanity to their demonic life, which is interesting. We'd love to see it. Nonetheless, we can't forget to ride the lightning with Zenitsu, folks. As he breaks the rubble, unlike Carla Yeager, he gives us a new alteration of his first form, Thunderclap and Flash. In the previous episodes, we talked about how Tanjiro has modified his forms to fit his body. Could the same be said for Zenitsu, as we have seen the great amount of growth in his fighting abilities throughout this arc?
Godlike speed for the win. This is where things start to pick up. This is where I start getting chills. And this is such a great moment for Zenitsu. We've been talking about, like, this arc is so good for Zenitsu. He's gotten so much development. And I think yes. I think that Zenitsu has spent so much time on his fighting style. But his is more, he can only do one form. So he spends all of his time perfecting that one form, that he is able to make changes within that one form. And I think that's really incredible. We've seen sixfold, we've seen eightfold, and now we're seeing godlike speed. And I think it makes sense. When you hone something so strongly, and it's just this one thing, it's kind of like what Gramps said to him in season 1. Hone it to perfection. If you can only master one thing, hone it to perfection. And that's what he's doing. He's honed it to perfection so much that he's created these offshoots of one form that only he can do. And that's really incredible. And we need to give Zenitsu more credit than we do, I think, because this moment is absolutely insane. Daki goes from like, I know this move. You've used it so many times on me. 5 seconds later, she's like, what? I didn't know he could do this. It's like, ha ha.
Honestly, she kind of gets wrecked. Like, oh my gosh, but agreed. What a great moment for Zenitsu. And this whole fight has been great. I only wish that he was awake to experience it fully. We'll get there. I'm confident that we'll get there, because even in his unconscious state, or his alternate ego, alternate personality state, he is getting continuously better within the context of this single fight that's happening. And he's OP. Like, he really is. Currently, he probably can put up the strongest fight out of anybody that's there, because Inosuke's already down for the count. Tanjiro is like well beyond his limit, and Tengen's not doing so great either. So Zenitsu might be in the best position to be able to give a real fight to any of these demons in this moment. So I definitely think that the amount of growth for him is really exciting. Has he combined two forms the same way that Tanjiro has? Maybe. I mean, if we can consider speed alone to be a form, then certainly, because that combined with the lightning, I think, is a deadly combination. And he'll definitely be somebody to keep an eye on throughout these next couple seasons.
I love talking about these moments. Both your answers gave me chills, both of you. But I just really love the way he said it, is that Tanjiro created this 1 in a million chance to go for the win. Now it's my turn. And I was like, that's my boy. When we were in theaters, I was like, let's go. Like, all the other like anxious babies were all screaming, and I was like, my people.
This was so hype in the movie theaters. Like, the moment that Zenitsu showed up, the crowd went absolutely wild. And I was like, that's it. Put some respect on this boy's name. Hell yeah.
Give him his flowers.
All right. Awesome. So now we get to see the iconic moment with Tengen playing Fido with one of the blades in his mouth and blocking Gyotaro's second attempt at Tanjiro's face. Stunning moment. The look in his eyes is amazing, and he stands full of vigor, far overdue for that udon, and claims they are going for the win. Looking for more comparisons, how does this compare to a turning point in other animes you may have watched?
Oh my gosh. There are so many other animes that do a moment like this really, really well, because it's like giving us the unexpected in the fight. It's like this second wind of this character. And I think it's really special when it is like the mentor character that steps up to the plate, because our protagonists are feeling very defeated, I think, by this point. Like, they gave it a good run, but everybody's getting tired. Everybody's getting beat up. And Hope is dimming a little bit, and then here they come. Here comes the mentor that's like, I've got to look cool in front of my mentees. Like, I've got to come in and save the day. And in some ways, we can even, I think, compare it a little bit to Demon Slayer itself, right? Like, we can compare this to Mugen Train and to the fight that we saw, because Rengoku had a second wind as well that happened. Obviously, we know how that turned out. So I think that makes us feel a little nervous going into this. And yet, the attitude is different. It's like much more casual and lighthearted, and he's still approaching it as something that's like very entertaining for him. So I think in that regard, we could tell that maybe the outcome will hopefully be a little bit different. Other animes that come to mind that are like kind of have a similar like lighthearted mentor, I think. I'm going to compare it to Black Clover. I just finished watching everything that's out of Black Clover so far, and I'm not going to give any spoilers because it's still kind of a slightly newer anime, but the last big fight that is animated as of April 2023, Yami needing to show off in front of Asta is very similar, I think, to this scene with Tengen and Tanjiro, and their personalities are similar in a lot of ways too. So if you haven't watched Black Clover and you like Demon Slayer, you're probably going to like it a lot. And there's a lot of good similarities in the fights, for sure.
Adding Black Clover to the list. Got it. This is such a good moment. Oh my gosh. Right before he does this, like, Gyutaro's blood sickle is literally like this close to Tanjiro's eye, about to like go in his face, and like, and he's like, don't give up, Akiya Midnight. Like, okay, all right, like, Gyutaro's like way stronger now. He tried to get him, it didn't work, and now it like things are bad. And then the music changes, and Tengen is there with the sword in his mouth. There's a big explosion, and I like what Emily said, because this is Tengen we're talking about. Like, he partially is showing off, right? Like, he knows that Tanjiro's right there. He's like, I'm gonna save him. Like, I just like picture him like running to the fight and seeing Tanjiro do that, and him just being like, how can I do this in the flashiest way possible? And it caused him to wait like a few extra seconds, and it's like, dude, like, wait. Like, I'm gonna wait until Tanjiro thinks he's dead so I can be flashy about it. Oh my gosh. He just has this absolutely amazing comeback moment. And to compare it, the show that keeps coming to my mind, where there's this like turning point in the fight where you think, there's just nothing else we can do. It's not technically an anime, but it is Avatar: The Last Airbender. And it's when, in the final battle, Aang is in this ball, and Ozai is just like going at it with the fire, and it's like Aang cannot hold up to him. And then Aang gets the pointy rock. We get our Avatar state back, and then this boy comes out of the rock, grabbing the man's goatee, and just like flicks his fire hand out of the way and says, "Not today." And he was showing off in that moment too. Like, he literally, like, Aang is literally in control of the Avatar state, right? And he's grabbing his goatee. Come on, dude. Like, you don't have to be that savage, right? And that's like the biggest turning point that I can think of, where like they're showing off, they're being flashy about it. We're in this moment where like we thought things were going well, then they were not, and then they got really bad, and then maybe we have that hope, and then things are going bad again, and we're getting that like final stretch, and it's done so well with the music and the explosions and the animation and the hype. This was another big moment for the audience to go wild when we saw this in theaters, and it absolutely deserves this because it is so flashy and so good.
I like both of your answers there. I have heard nothing but good things about Black Clover. So I definitely see how that fight scene could be good, because I've heard even just season 1, first few episodes slap. So
Black Clover, I'm gonna do my soapbox really quick, and then I'm gonna be done.
Go for it.
I have watched a lot of animes at this point. I still have plenty more I need to watch, don't get me wrong, but I think that something that's really special about Black Clover is that you can tell that it was written by somebody who also loves anime, and it borrows from a lot of them. It borrows very directly from a lot of them, but it takes all of the best parts of all of the best ones, and it gets rid of all of the bad parts of the best ones. So it's pretty much just like solidly good the whole way through.
All
but
right.
it, you know, if you've watched any others, you're going to see a little bit of it in that show. So
Nice.
enjoy.
When I was writing that question, I'm not really sure what my answer would have been, and it didn't come to me until right now. I'm going to say this without spoiling Hannah, but Emily, you know what I'm talking about in Naruto when someone decides to stop in the middle of a fight and write a rap song.
What?
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
God. Oh
It
my
happens.
God, I forgot about
It
that.
happens. Emily, that was locked in your memory. Yeah, Hannah's face right now. Wait, hold on. You need to stay still. I need that for a snip. Oh no.
And also,
Perfect.
I have never watched all of the dub of Naruto. I know that's how a lot of people did because you just like grew up with it, but like I was an adult the first time I watched it. We watched it subtitled, and like none of the rap rhymed at all. Like we love him. We love him, but it did not rhyme.
I can't believe we're talking about a fight scene with a rap in the middle. Like, what am I getting myself into when I start?
Actual rap battle, Naruto style.
Oh my God.
I forgot about that. Oh my God.
Bro, see, that's the thing is that, oh man, we're going too far. We're going too far. Last thing I'm going to say about this is that I'm very upset that Naruto, after episode 398, is not dubbed on Hulu. I watched all, 600 episodes dubbed, and now I had to switch to sub in the last 100 episodes. Do you understand? It's a different show now. All right. Coming back to what we're actually talking about. I think kind of one of the coolest things that was done in the season is in the following moments. Tengen says the score of his blood sickles is readable, and the way that this scene and the following fight scenes were just so well done. Let's just open a space to talk about the next few minutes here, because I really enjoyed just everything that came after this point.
I have never felt the just mixture of awe and excitement and giddiness and just like being on the edge of my seat, wanting to know what happens next than I feel whenever I watch this. And let me get this straight. I have now seen this particular fight scene so much that I think I can probably recite it in Japanese. Like at this point, I'm not going to attempt that. But from the moment Tengen shows up until, like pretty much until like Tanjiro starts to jump in and it kind of shifts, like I don't know what they're feeding their animators, but whatever they're feeding them, I hope that it is legal.
Oh no!
Don't do
I don't know, that word
anything
was
illegal.
because they need to keep feeding them that.
For legal purposes, please do not do anything that is against any of your local implications and or laws pertaining to your country. The Hashira Half Hour does not endorse any illegal activities. Please consult your local law advisor for further information.
How's
How's that for PR?
That was
Pretty
really
good.
Brian.
It's pretty good, Brian.
I'm so sorry. Anyway, whatever these animators are doing, they have proven time and time again that they're putting their heart and their soul into the show for our viewing pleasure from the start. And obviously, they probably have a bigger budget now because the anime has reached such huge popularity. So you know, like, the animation is going to get better when the budget gets better, right? But something about like this particular scene, and this is like saying like all the fight scenes in the entertainment district leading up to this have been absolutely spectacular, to the point of me, I think I mentioned it, I've had to like pause and rewind to read the subtitles, because I realized I forgot to read the subtitles while I was watching the fight scene. I was so entranced in it. But this moment kind of blows any fight scene that I think I have ever witnessed in my life out of the water. And what's crazy is that it's kind of like, it's not kind of, it's super chaotic. It is a bunch of explosions. It is a bunch of sparks going boom, 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 boom. We're seeing Tengen and Gyutaro just like scream bloody murder at each other, kind of be like jabbing at each other the whole time as well. Tengen's eyes are like popping, you know, and it's chaos. It is flashy chaos, but it is my kind of chaos. And I don't know how else to explain it other than this is an absolute masterpiece of a fight scene, because it's hyped, it's exciting. Tengen's back, so we're happy. We didn't get this. Like, yes, Rengoku had his moment to kind of come back, and like we saw the fire like go through his body, right? But the problem is we still lost him, you know? And he gave it his all. Tengen is here, and we still feel like we could, because he's still poison, you know? But it feels more like things are going to turn out better. And this is really the first, like, big sign of that. And it's just so exciting to watch. And I'm going on a tangent, but what a wild, wild time.
Absolutely agreed. And just again, getting a chance to mention that I think it's really fitting and really fascinating that Tengen's ability here is sound breathing, and that he's like reading the slashing of the sickle and the blood demon art that's kind of being propelled from that. It's, you know, it's obviously like a canon, like very similar to Tanjiro's version of finding the opening thread and moving forward through the pattern in whatever their own way is that's tied directly to their breathing style. I think it's so cool that it's like measured by rhythm, and he's like, I can read it now. You're like, I forget exactly what he calls it, like your vulgar or your like ghastly melody or something like that. And he is like just weaving through the sound of the battle. And for me, I'll come back to this, spoiler, this is going to end up being my favorite moment, but like the quality of the sound design in this scene, again, I just have to give a shout out to our sound designers for this, because the way that everything is layered, knowing that this is his breathing style is just so detailed and intricate and so cool. And beautifully animated too, like the flashes of the color that are like Tengen's breathing style versus the sickles and the blood demon art that's being thrown back at him is really terrifying, but kind of invigorating to watch too, because it does seem to be hopefully going better for Tengen than it went for Rengoku in the last fight. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. I think I said this when we talked about episodes 10 and 11 in the theaters, but I'll always say it. I said it once and I'll say it again. When I noticed that the slashes themselves and Tengen deflecting them had different sounds, I lost it. I was like, I can hear it. I can hear the score. It's me. I'm Tengen now. I'm just kidding. I'm absolutely not Tengen. But it's a really cool scene. And I think that, you know, on social media and stuff, you see a lot of people hype this scene up. And I think, you know, watch it for yourself and tell me, and go ahead and drop a comment and, you know, tell me that you didn't enjoy it, or tell me that you didn't feel a little excited. I'm going to have a little bit of a hard time believing you, to be fully honest with you. So I think we're just at such a cool junction in the show. And then Tanjiro turns to face his own junction and fights and pushes himself to summon the strength he needs by force. His face goes ablaze and the mark shifts. His scar shifts? What?
I don't know, but something's going on. And I love that we get him with like the godlike, like death eye look that we've seen in a couple other animes too. Notably, we've definitely seen Mr. Levi Ackerman with this same eye design when they kind of go completely freaking feral, right? So I love getting to see Tanjiro have this moment. And what is going on with that mark shifting? I don't know. Guess we'll have to find out in next week's episode.
Or farther.
Or farther. Or much, much far. Next 5 years episode. But we will find out.
Oh.
I'm looking like directly into the eyes of the producers of the show.
He looks like a prosecution lawyer. Like you're like, I'm coming to get you.
Guilty. Your Honor.
This is so chaotic. Oh my god. Literally the what that you gave Bryan was exactly me. I was like, what? We skipped over the fact that Tanjiro literally got stabbed in his mouth. So he's literally like, we thought he couldn't take on anymore. It's like my kid's done, bro. Like he was done 5 episodes ago, and yet he's still here. And now he's finally been hit with a sickle. And there's poison. So how are we gonna get out of this one? That's to come as well. But I love in this moment, and I think that the original subtitles I got didn't say this, but like I know the manga says like, you know, this moment Tengen is at his limit. The person that has to behead him is Tanjiro. And then I think in the movie the subtitles were different from what I got when I first watched this, and it said, and Tanjiro is kind of like, the person to behead Gyutaro has to be me, because he's like, Gyutaro is or Tengen is like, he's done. He's been stabbed in the side now. He's been stabbed through an eye. Like Tengen took more injuries as well. And I'm like, Tanjiro, come on, you're like the worst off of them all. But he's really just like pushing himself so past the limits that we thought existed. And that's when this flame mark on his forehead materializes, and he gets the avatar eyes. And again, just what an incredible moment. And I know we've already brought him up a couple times, but I really need to shout out Hanai-san for his voice acting here, because he never misses the mark. But in this moment, like, I can't even imagine trying to scream and shout in the way that he is doing in this moment. So hats off to him once again. What just an incredible moment, and a lot of mystery. Like, what's going on with Tanjiro? Why is his mark changing? It's already changed once. So what is going on? We will find out, but who knows when.
And only you can press it for sooner release dates without inhumane working conditions. With that being said, though, Inosuke arrives with the most clutch comeback in maybe all of anime history. Some will call it plot armor. I call it good storytelling. They did set this up, though. I'm going to take a quick second. I don't usually stand Inosuke, but I will say in this moment, I don't think you can call it plot armor. Reason being is that we did see him disjoint his entire body to fit through like a 12-inch hole. So yeah, you can call it plot armor, or you could also call it whatever you learned on that mountain stayed up on that mountain, and now you brought it home. So there's that. But we get to see our 3 Kamaboko boys go for the slash and see all 3 of them take out both parts of Upper Six at the same time. And the moment of pure silence approaches. 2 heads lop off and fall right next to each other. Do you still get chills watching this scene? Because I sure do.
Absolutely. It's like this is the longest fight we've been in, and this fight is actually going well because the last time we fought an upper moon, it did not go well. So like finally something good happens, right? I do want to circle back to what you said about plot armor because I think that's a really important thing to say. In Inosuke's case, it's probably the most plot armor moment I feel. However, I don't necessarily really think that most of what happens with these characters is plot armor because every single thing that happens is like an expansion of something that has already happened with them, or they are demon slayers. They are literally not normal humans, you know? So like they live in a world where you can breathe so well that you can jump onto buildings, parkour. That's just not like real life. So we really can't take these situations that they're in and say that's not real. That's plot armor because this isn't the real world, right? And I think that's such an important thing though, because people complain all the time. Like I see Tanjiro plot armor jokes left and right. And it's like, well, first of all, he's the main character. Every single main character in any show has plot armor unless they die at some point in the show. Like, let's be real, right? We don't want him to just not fight. He's the main character. So it's important to have. Tangent. I get chills watching this scene because not only is it super just like, finally we did it, that like they've been beheaded at the same time, their heads are flying. I like that they had it happen at the same time too, even though we've already established that it didn't have to happen at the same time, just for dramatic effect. We had just such a chilling scene. Hats off to all three voice actors with that last scream. Go them. Lungs of steel, in the words of Zach Aguilar. And there's something so powerful and so special about it being our trio that gets it done. Tengen was there. He was keeping Gyutaro down. But at the end of the day, it was our three boys that took down these demons. And I think Tengen would say that to anyone who asked. And he says, you know, like he would say, like, don't praise me. I didn't do it, right? So he got his moment with Gyutaro, but at the end of the day, our boys did it. And I think that's really powerful to see them take on this upper six and them take them down.
100%. Absolutely chills during this scene. They've gotten so much stronger. And we're going to continue to see them get stronger and stronger and stronger, I hope, because this fight's over, it seems, right? And they've won. This is the first upper six that they've encountered. We've encountered one other of the 12 Kazuki, but they were, you know, it was lower six. So while a difficult fight, not quite as foreboding as this one. And also we'll remember that another Hashira did step in and help there. So this is one where they've been able to contribute more than in the last fights, which is kind of all you can hope for, I would think, with this. There's not really a way to practice for what these fights are exactly going to be like, because not too many Hashira have fought the upper moons and have lived to tell the tale. And so the fact that Tanjiro and Zenitsu and Inosuke are able to help hold their own while Tengen also does his thing is pretty incredible to see the amount of growth that they've had so quickly. So I'm so happy for them. This one had us all a little bit nervous. I think that we were a little bit unsure of what victory might look like, if it could come at all, given the way that the last season movie ended. So it feels kind of reaffirming, I think, to see that, yes, they can win and they are getting stronger and what they have been working towards does matter.
And I think those are both really important contributions, right? Because finally acknowledging like the amount of growth they did, right? You know, when it was Tanjiro v. Rui, like, I'll get it. I'll give it to him. The boy had heart. However, he did not understand that he had only scratched the surface, right? As soon as the blood threads came out, it got real and he was not ready for it. Now they're at this point where they're like, oh, you know, I actually did some damage. Okay, I see my points up on the board, right? So it's finally kind of a nice moment to be able to see like how far they've grown, which is really awesome. With the last moments of the episode approaching, Uzui screaming, "It's not over, Kamado," and to run. As one final attack is unleashed that looks like it destroys what's left of the entertainment district. We cut to the outro. What did you think of the way that this episode ended? Because I remember when I first watched it with my husband, he was very certain that this was the end of the season, and I argued there was no way that this was the last episode.
They can't leave us on such a huge cliffhanger, right? Like, we have to have some sort of sense of finality. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, I don't think that this was in the manga. Like what are they doing here with this explosion? And it was in the manga, but they took it a step further with the anime to make it, I think, a lot more chilling and a lot more foreboding than what was in the manga initially. And obviously, you know, they have a little bit more wiggle room here with like the colors and the sound quality and just the eeriness of the scene overall. So while I didn't necessarily think that this was the end of the season, it made me nervous again right after we just had a little tiny bit of what felt like relief. And like, we felt like the fight was over. It's like, what's going to happen? Like, what else could possibly happen? Now they're already decapitated. They should be disintegrating, right? Don't know.
It's funny you mentioned that, Emily, because I actually remember, didn't we talk about this literally the day after the episode aired at work? Because I remember, like, we mentioned, like, I don't, like, at this point, I read some of the manga because I think after like episode 8 or 9, I just couldn't handle the weight anymore. So I started reading the manga, and I was like, I don't remember this happening. And you're like, I don't remember it happening either. Because it took up like one tiny page. Mm-hmm. So like I think it was just I didn't understand what was happening type thing. To the point of I didn't remember it happening, and I originally thought that this was like something specific to the anime, and we kind of agreed on that. We're like, oh, this must not have happened, and they're just making things dramatic. What a time. I can't believe that was over a year ago, man. I still remember, though, just the collective gasp that the entire fandom had that was how we ended the episode. After everything we went through in this episode, after all the ups and downs, we think we're ending on a up, and then we see Tanjiro struggling to breathe once again, but this time because of poison, so this actually feels bad. And Uzui Tengen is like, run, get out of here. It's not over, with such desperation in his voice, too. And thankfully, that wasn't the end of the season, because let me tell you, a network television show might end on that. But you know how long their hiatuses are? Like 4 months. Not 14 months. So thank you for not leaving it on that big of a cliffhanger, UFO Table and Aniplex.
Yeah, that's what we were both concerned about, is like, because at this point in our anime career, or at least in my anime career, I'll say, I won't speak for my husband here, but you know, I had only experienced like a lot of network television shows, and now that I'm trying to reference one, I can't even think of one off the top of my head that I fully watched. But I always understood that cliffhangers were supposed to be this like, oh boy, here we go. And I was like, this is it. There's no way we're getting anything further than this. And so that's why I really enjoy that moment, because it does give you that like real suspense. And, you know, not that the season has lacked it by any means, but it just added another layer, which I thought was just amazing.
It's a method that a lot of network TV shows do to keep people watching. The show that like comes to mind when I think of cliffhangers, I was a devout fan of Castle when I was in high school, which was a show on ABC. It was a crime show. And each episode in the season, unless it was like a special 2-parter, did not end on a cliffhanger. It was like an episodic, like we're taking on a crime in New York City, we're solving the murder, and then we move on to the next one. But every season finale would always be like crazy cliffhangers. Like at one point, the main character is lying on the ground with a bullet wound in her chest. Like, what? And then the season's done. But like I said, it's 4 months. So like they can kind of get away with that. When you look at anime, obviously there's manga readers, but it's kind of mean to make us wait over a year to find out what happens next. So I like that most animes that I watch, the season doesn't necessarily end on much of a cliffhanger. If like there might be a little bit, but anyway.
Now that I'm thinking about these network TV shows, now I'm thinking about the cliffhanger from Euphoria, and I'm still waiting for season 3. HBO, let's go. It's time for me to subscribe. But with that being said, any last thoughts before we move to favorite moments?
Tanjiro looked like a chipmunk when he was trying to breathe at the end, and I felt bad for laughing at what he looked like.
Oh, poor little Tanjiro.
He's literally gasping for air, dying because of poison, and the first time I saw it, I giggled because he looked like a chipmunk.
God, Hannah, I see what you mean. Oh, no. Oh, God.
Are you going to share your screen?
Sure, we can do that quickly. Oh, no.
Yeah, see? My poor boy.
It's because his teeth are like blacked out by blood.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
poor
God.
little guy.
The way they drew him was, I mean, obviously, like he's literally dying, but
Yeah.
he looks like a chipmunk.
Oof.
It's okay.
Well,
Tanjiro, I still love you.
Chipmunk or not, still a great dude. But for favorite moments, mine would be the opening scenes and all the fire in the background. It was while we were actually in LA, and Emily's partner Tom gave me this perspective. I have truly seen it in this light ever since then, but he pointed out that the mix of practical and animated elements, I believe that was the way he put it, and by that meaning like the actual realistic looking fire with the animated characters and the other pieces, the balance of those things created just such a beautiful scene. And ever since I've looked at it from that perspective, I have seen this show in a different light because I've started to pick out other elements. Looking at another moment, this is demonstrated back in season 1 where Tanjiro is fighting Kyogai. That water, I believe, would be considered a realistic and practical element because it actually looks like water, but Tanjiro is using it in that animated form. So I think that is just a very interesting way that the entire show has been designed. Thanks, Tom.
We stan Tom. And we stan how UFO table perfectly mixes like the real elements that looks like straight up real, like not even like animated, and then the 2D characters. It's like a really cool contrast. My favorite moment has to be, and it's really hard to pick in this episode, like it always is, but especially in this one, it has to be when Tanjiro starts the beginning of the end of the episode with headbutting Gyutaro. First of all, because then I can kind of say that the rest of the episode is my favorite moment because it's just like, it just goes. But also just, it reminds me of, again, being at the Los Angeles premiere. And, you know, we had just spent like an hour of having Hanai-san and Zach and Yuma-san on the stage, getting the performance from MA. Like the energy was already high, but throughout this first part of the episode, everyone's just quiet because it's like, this is bad. And then when Tanjiro headbutts Gyutaro was really when the audience just started to kind of pick up, and like that was the first like everyone just started getting excited. So it just like reminds me of also just how exciting that experience was. Like when I rewatched this episode yesterday for the first time since seeing it in theaters, I was just like, man, like I'll never forget that moment. And it brings me even more like excitement to the episode, even when I'm watching it on my smaller TV on my, you know, couch rather than back in the theater with the elevated sound. So just what a powerful moment. What a great moment from my boy as well, using his brain like he does, and a great setup for the rest of the fight.
Both are such good moments. And I already touched on mine. I'm just gonna call back to it. But the design of Tengen's sound breathing versus Gyutaro and the quality of that sound design is just so incredible. And honestly, I'm just gonna give an overall sound design shout out for the entire episode. Like we've also got the quality of like Zenitsu's godlike speed. I mean, there's so much going on here, and I think that it is really complemented by the sound choices, which again, I think that I came to really appreciate getting to see it on the big screen. and getting to hear it with that surround sound system that they had. If you get a chance, if there ever are any more Demon Slayer movies and you can go see it in a movie theater, please, by all means, take the chance to go. You know, you'll spend a little bit of money, which will go back to giving us more beautiful seasons of anime from the studio, and you'll get to see something really special in a way that you just can't really experience it in your home. Movie theaters are still very much alive, and they should be, for a good reason. Go see the movies.
Don't listen to the haters.
Well, folks, with our small movie, if you will, coming to the end, let's all get to the lobby. And of course, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and as well as Twitter at Hashira Half. You can also hit us on the YouTube. We sometimes do some videos. But if you leave a comment or DM us any questions, you could definitely see us answer it on a future episode. We are also so excited to be getting into the Swordsmith Village coming up. Release date for the first episode is on April 9th. We are going to be, of course, following up with heated content to keep in touch with the season. So you definitely don't want to miss out. So hit those bell icons, get some notifications going. And thank you again for listening in. Umai.
Umai.
Oh my.